All right, well, good morning. My name is Gilda George, as you probably have figured out by now, and I wanted to welcome you to what has become a signature event at SABU's annual conference, the Gary Klott Memorial Ethics Discussion, and this year it's entitled Ethics During Challenging Times. First, a few words about Gary Klott, who worked at the New York Times before becoming a syndicated columnist specializing in income tax coverage. Gary served as president of SABU in 1994 and was instrumental in writing SABU's ethics policy. Even in the recent revision, we kept the backbone of that policy, so what Gary and his colleagues hammered out during that time has served us in good stead. Gary died suddenly in August 2002, and at SABU's 2003 annual conference in Boston, we inaugurated the first ethics symposium in his honor. His widow, Sandy, who was also a SABU president, past president, and his family usually attend this session, but could not this year. Sandy and I have been in touch, and she sends her best regards to SABU's members, and I'll be sure to report back to her on what is sure to be a lively discussion. We have a very distinguished panel today to help facilitate the discussion. In a few moments, I'll introduce them, and we'll begin. You should all have clickers, and if you don't, as I said, move to the front, because the clickers are sort of distributed towards the front of the room. You'll have about 90 seconds, maybe more or less. We said less, right? About 45 seconds, to view each of the questions and to register your answers. We'll start to discuss it and we'll move on. Some will elicit more discussion and more remarks than others, but we'll need to keep it moving, and I'm sure that we will. With us this morning, we have Mike Fancher, who is the former Seattle Times executive editor. Mike retired from the Seattle Times last year after 2 decades as executive editor there. He is a member of the inaugural class of the Donald W. Reynolds Fellows at the University of Missouri School of Journalism. His fellowship involves writing, research, and public speaking in the digital age. Under his leadership at the Times, the paper won 4 Pulitzer Prizes and was a Pulitzer finalist 13 other times. Liz Pulliam-Weston is a syndicated online personal finance columnist. She's the most read personal finance columnist on the internet, according to Nielsen Net Ratings. Her columns appear on MSN Money, and her syndicated question and answer column, Money Talk, runs in the Los Angeles Times, Cleveland Plain Dealer, Stars and Stripes, and other newspapers. She has written 3 books on personal finance, including the best-selling Your Credit Score. I'll also note that SABU really ranks this week because we get her before she goes on the Dr. Phil show tomorrow. So you can catch her then. Yeah, that's great, isn't it? With us also is Joanna Ossinger, who's a senior editor at Fox Business Network. She's a Colorado native. She's followed a fascinating career path from a cum laude undergraduate degree in chemistry and classical civilizations at Cornell to managing the day-to-day operations at foxbusiness.com. Along the way, she got a master's degree in public policy from Georgetown University, was a health policy analyst with the American Academy of Actuaries, and served as a research assistant at the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. Joanne, I'm going to use you as an example when those, the interns come in and say, well, do I have to take a journalism degree to come in? Anyway. So, later, she was a columnist and editor for the Wall Street Journal, managing editor of Life and Money at TheStreet.com, and assistant editor at Knight Ridder Tribune Business News. And filling in for David Milstead, who is ill, we have Rob Reutemann, who is an editor at The Rocky since 1983. He has done just about everything as state, city, national editor before becoming business editor 12 years ago. Rob, of course, is always also a SABU board member and executive committee and is now vice president. Is that right?
It is.
It is. Okay, vice president of SABU. So good morning, all, and we welcome. So we're going to kick it off with our first question. I'm going to read the question. It'll go on the screen. Again, just for those who are coming in, sit down front so you got clickers so you can interact with us. There's clickers you can vote with, all right? Sure. Oh, yeah, you need those. Here. Okay. An important election is about to take place. To show your support for a particular candidate, do you, A, make a campaign contribution, paste a bumper sticker on your car bumper, and plant a sign in your yard supporting that candidate? B, create a social networking site with positive and exhaustive coverage supporting that candidate? C, participate in online discussions supporting that candidate using an alternative identity? D, all of the above, since you are a business reporter and this is a free country, you don't cover politics anyway? Or E, none of the above, as you remain faithful to the impartial journalist and to being an impartial journalist, and it would violate company policy? Mike and I were starting to talk about this one before as executive editor. What's it? Oh, I'm sorry. You vote. You should press the clicker A, B, C, D, or E, right? Is that how it's set up? As far as I know, this part I wasn't involved with. Just click it. Click A, B, C, D, or E. Okay. My technical assistant's here. All right, he's got it. We're good. Mike, what was your rule? If I was a business reporter, business staffer at the Times, would I still have to adhere to this stuff?
Well, this is that classic example of weighing your rights as a citizen versus your responsibilities as a journalist, and the notion that you can be impartial versus the public's trust in your impartiality. And in this case, if it's an important election, by definition, that probably means that the electorate's pretty well split, maybe a lot of hard feelings about it. So one question I would ask you to think about as you're considering this decision is we have a policy against political engagement by journalists. I could say I'm going to adhere to that policy impartially, and then I reveal to you that I happen to support the other candidate, but trust me, I'm being impartial here. I'm not swayed by my feelings, and I think that's the way the readers look at that. So I think you really need to take into account how this is perceived by your audience.
I get it. All right, and our results are up. It looks like we all seem to fall, or most of us at least, fall into the camp of E, none of the above. That basically you remain an impartial journalist and do not participate because it would violate company policy. Joanna, did you have something to mention?
And I would actually personally take this a step further. I'm not registered with a political party because that sort of thing is public information. You know, there are all these studies coming out saying, 95% of academics at this university are Democrats or whatever. I just don't want to be a part of that. A discussion like that. I'd rather be an independent person.
Right. Again, personally, I've been an independent journalist for that reason, or independent voter, rather. Go ahead. Identify yourself just quickly.
Dan Loving from the Wichita Eagle. In our state, and I'm not registered either, but in our state, you have to be registered to vote in the primary.
Yes, that's the same in Florida as well.
So I don't know, if you have a different view.
Can you be registered as an independent?
Yeah, you have to register with the party.
You can be registered as independent, but you give up your right to vote in the primary. Right. In the primary. Yeah. It's the same in Florida.
That is an issue, and actually I've had this discussion with friends who say, in New York City, you basically have to be a Democrat to decide anything because everybody's a Democrat in New York City, and that's where the elections are decided. Yes, sometimes I don't have a say in that stuff, but that's a sacrifice that I've made, in order not to be labeled as something. But there are people who feel differently.
I think you've seen with the closeness of the last two presidential elections how you would turn off half the electorate no matter who you advocated for. And you've also been frustrated by how easily a lot of hard work is dismissed by people who simply say, the liberal media this, the liberal media that, and they pay no attention to it. And anything we can do that counters that perception is good.
When I was a political reporter in Orange County, California, I registered as a Republican largely to avoid the hassle of the liberal media thing. It was just like, there, that took care of it. But, when I moved to the LA Times and then started writing a column and having strong opinions, I just registered as a Democrat, and I figured that's, I won't put a sign in my yard, I won't campaign, I won't even sign, petitions, but I feel like being able to vote in the primaries is something I want to retain as a right as my citizen.
Bill Turner?